from a customer's house. It is a Sears Homart, and I have never seen that name before. Automatic heating, 600 it says. I don't know what that means, what the 600 means. So, now this was something to do with a filter that was sitting on it, so that's really not of issue, but life-clad ceramic coated. So I'm going to assume they're talking about the heat exchanger. So in 1963 or 4 is when this furnace was made, the best we can tell. The people moved into the house in 65, and I know they're being factual about it because I grew up right across the street from the house. So the Sears Homart automatic heating, 600. Life-clad ceramic coated. So let's take a look at what ceramic coated means. And here's something else. Comfort Century, I'm not sure what that is. But I did notice one other thing. It has a fan only switch right there. Now I'm not 100% sure that's factory, but it looks like it. If you look at the box in there, that you know, you can see it's either spot welded or you know, it's factory box. Now whether or not that switch was optional or added, I wouldn't know, but it looks like something of the era. And this grill is, you know, it doesn't allow airflow, but it's kind of, it looks like a grill, looks like a grate. So I'm gonna assume the ceramic coating they're talking about, you can see I wiped off this one heat exchanger cell. I just took one of our handy wipes, or whatever you call them, Tubbo towels wipes, and just wiped it off. And it is remarkably in good shape. Here's one that has not been wiped off. Unbelievable that, you know, this thing was in operation since 1965. And that little bit of rust there, surface rust, is obviously from the air conditioning coil that sat on here. That thing was kind of unique too, but it all got thrown away. So I didn't really get the opportunity to get it out and analyze it and talk about it or anything. But I just thought this furnace was worth looking at, because I tell you what, back in these days, look at that heat exchanger there. It's just unbelievable. Back in these days, things were built to last. I don't think any manufacturers would want anything lasting 50 or 60 years anymore. It kind of hurts their new sales. So let's open it up some and look at some of it. And this was kind of a deal where I told the guys don't tear it up taking it out, and they did a little bit. Obviously that was mounted right there. Now I can't find any actual serial number, or not that's labeled serial number. You see those things there that are on the tag, you know, the natural gas and the outrageously huge BTUs. And you know, I don't know if that's a serial number there, or, you know, if they would, I don't know that they even had serial numbers, but I mean, if you look at the model number 6603, you know, after that, everything else just, nothing looks like a serial number to me. So, operating instructions. This thing was very primitive. It sure was. And built to last. Look at that valve. Original valve. Honeywell. Still in operation. Just a few days ago when we took it out. Light right. So I lit it with a big long wood match, stuck it up in there and lit that pilot assembly and fired it up, and it just on its initial fire up, it had a little bit of rollout here, and you can see over the years the heat has just, you know, deteriorated this finish on this plate here. But it was operating safely and working just fine when we took it out. So, I mean, that's basically 50, 55 years, I guess. They definitely know they moved in 1965. So that tells you that it operated that long. Now, it could have been manufactured in 62, 3, 4, I don't really know. But let's look at some of the parts on it and just take a few minutes to examine this thing a little further. Now, in order to have easy access to the blower, this thing that looks like a grill, I'll tell you what, that blower is no small potatoes itself. Big old motor there, belt driven. But you can see those latches on the top of this door here that kind of looks like a grill. The latches pop right loose and it just lifts out of the way and gives you access, you know, for your belt and servicing and whatnot. Not really sure what that is. That looks like it may have been a plate or a shim. It goes there to tighten it against. I don't know. The fellow was pretty handy. I knew him. And he had somewhat of a shop in his basement. I don't know if that's something that he made. It's got tape on it. Or if that's something it came with. Just in that green color and everything. That doesn't look like something that came factory. Looks like he might have made that. Big old heavy duty blower. So let's see what we can identify on it. So this blower looks like it may have been manufactured for this manufacturer, you know, for the furnace company, for whoever made these for Sears. And it's got lubricating instructions. And I would have assumed it had one of the old cups that, you know, had a top that you dripped oil down in, but I don't see it. We can't tell if it's ever been worked on or not. It may have. So it may have been rebuilt at some point. The bearings in these things were really not very sophisticated, so to speak. But let's pull this thing on out of here. Alright, so this having some sort of slide adjustment there. Says calibrator. wheel you can actually turn. You could actually turn. And that right there might be a little bit beyond my pay grade to tell you what that is. Not really sure what purpose that served and what exactly it did calibrate. But flathead screws look like it'll be fairly simple to slip this thing out of here. Open the little box first. Which still sounds good. It's got a little flap that covers it. I see some solder on there. And these wire nuts have copper inserts. And this is not plastic, I don't think. I think it may be Bakelite. I'm not sure. Yeah, they might be plastic. But they do have copper inserts. Don't see those today. So they're just twisted together. Well, things sure were done differently back in the day. And I'm convinced that this is all factory that's really never been opened up. All right, so we got the wire out. It's funny how it's not even a hex, it's a square headed nut and bolt here that for adjustment. I think this should have like a little rubber foot on it. I've always seen them on the older ones, and apparently that rubber foot was gone, and maybe that's why that plate was made and put there, because it started denting it in. You can see it pushing in there. So maybe that's what that plate was for, and it actually might have been factory, I don't know. But let's see how hard or easy. Oh Lord, those come right out. So I'm curious as to what these are, and they are not just El Cheapo self-tapping sheet metal screws. That's actually threaded. So there's actually something in there that's threaded. A couple of sheet metal screws laying down here in the bottom of it for whatever reason. I'm sure that was when they were putting the filter on the top. This one's a little tighter, but it's coming right out. Yep. That washer's a little more stuck to it than the other one. There you go. We'll get this whole thing apart and have a little small handful of hardware store type fasteners. All right. See if anything else appears to be holding it in. Yep, it's got screws back there. So let's get those out. I don't know what that is. this is coming out really easy. Not sure if that piece of wire there is like a ground or what, but it was under the washer, and it was under the washer there, bolting it down. Let's see if we can slide this thing out now. All right, I do not believe this thing has ever been out before. It certainly doesn't look like it. It is not light. So, here's what the bottom of the heat exchanger looks like. And you can still see the ceramic coating. Tell you what, boy, they made things to last back then. They sure did. I'm not sure what this is made out of. Probably something hazardous, probably asbestos. So we're not going to pick at that too much, but it's all still intact all the way around, whatever that is sealing that up. So let's go a little further. So I took 2 screws out of here, and this panel moves pretty quick and easy. And these obviously are just bolted on to allow you to mount ductwork to it. Of course, back then everything didn't have central air. And let's see if we can see how to get the front off here. I've taken these off. See what's under here. Not going to be real easy to get to all those. Like this piece is separate. Let's see. Do not alter safety stop. Not real easy to get this jet bar off. You reach up in there with a wrench. Get those And this whole thing, I guess everything will slide out, burners and all, but I'm anxious to see what those look like. Tell you what, this thing has been serviced over the years, at least some, because there is no way those would be that clear. But let's wait and get them all the way out before we decide too much. All right, so let's go ahead and pull this whole big burner rack and get a look at this. Let's get a closer look at all these burners and see what we can see. These 4 3/8 bolts right there, 2 there and 2 there, and this whole thing should pull out here and pull right out of the heat exchanger, and we'll get a look at it. So thus far we've used very little tools. I've got a 3/8 ratcheting Craftsman wrench here I'm going to use to pull these out. I got a feeling in the end we're going to have a pile of hardware and the tools we use to get the thing apart, and it's going to be a very primitive set. Oh, that's actually threaded, so that's not a self-tapper. Let's get them out. Okay, so we got the big valve and the orifice bar here, part of the burner, I guess you could say. We got that out of the way, and these are obviously just going to be independent burners. So they are quite a bit different than what we have nowadays. And you see, when you loosen those 2 screws right there, you can turn the air mixture. You can turn the end right there to let more or less oxygen up there with the gas. And here is the part that's important to maintain and keep clean is that material there. I'll tell you what, that's something else. And it's not super clean. So that's what just came out of tilting it up there. And in the old days, when we cleaned stuff like this, we would just take a wire brush and lightly run over that and just kind of knock it loose and get the big part like that of it out. And then we'd take it outside with an air compressor. I have done a lot of things. I mean, when I was younger, I'd take carburetor cleaner and blast them out and then blow them out with air, just try to get them as clean as possible as far as all of that area that lets the flame through. But I'll tell you one thing that might be neat to do is put all these burners together on the table outside and hook gas to it and light it up and just see what it looks like. And these are kind of stuck up in there's like a slot. I would think, yeah, you can see that slot back there that this end just kind of lays into. And I don't know if all these are gonna be full. Yeah, there's not near as much in that one. So the one with the pilot on it had a lot more in it. So this thing certainly is not without maintenance ever. You can see the end of it there a little bit stopped up. But there's definitely some I don't know what you want to call that. Basically like carbon buildup, or but none of them appear to have near as bad of a buildup in them as that first one, the center one, which was the one with the pilot in it. And that's the one that lights up first. We're gonna have a little mess to clean up here. All of them pretty dirty right there on the end. Almost like they're plugged up. So one thing I'm noticing different about them is the one with the pilot had this brown looking dirt, and the rest of them have all had that lighter grayish, more tan colored granules out of it. I mean, that is distinctively different. All of that came out of all, you know, 5 of the others, and then the one in the wasn't really in the center, because you see there's 6 burners, and the pilot was right here in this one, and that's what came out of the pilot burner, and all that came out of the main, the rest of the other 5 main burners. So that's something a little bit different. A little strange to analyze there as to what would make the one with the pilot in it that lights first, I guess, what would make that happen. And the way it shared the flame was with all of these. All these right here would deflect, you know, and make them all light. This has to be what makes them share the flame and makes one light all of them. And like I say, that might be fun to put it together and lay it up on a table and light it. I may do that before it's over with. But anyway, I just can't stop looking at these limits here. That one's the fan, and this is the safety. The bottom one's the safety for the burner, I guess. And that one says fan up there. Let's get those out and take a look at them as well. Okay. See what exactly it takes. And funny thing is that on all of these bolts and screws, once I've broken them loose, they came out by hand, even the self-tapping ones or the threaded ones, either one. So, little baffles that are slowing down the airflow, I guess, out of the, you know, out of the heat exchanger, the draft. So, you know, these are actually part of the tune of the burner. You can see that's inside the heat exchanger, and it these little plates actually slowed the draft down to obviously make the cells of the heat exchanger get hotter and keep it from drafting too fast. And you can see inside there just how tough these were. Can't believe how shiny it got after we just wiped it with a wipe. some sort of coating, ceramic coating, whatever it said on that label over there. It's just really unbelievable that this thing ran 55 years. So, just thought that was interesting about the heat exchanger. And it looks like it's all, looks like when we take this whole plate out, I'm not sure about this. This might be, it doesn't feel like it's going to come apart. It looks like this whole plate comes out to get this heat exchanger out and lay it up where we can look at it. But let's look at these limits first. I was going to do that. Okay, let's get out of that one. It's longer than I thought it was. I'm going to have to pull them both out together. I doubt these have ever been changed or taken out for any reason. I mean, these old parts were, you know, back in those days, everything was made pretty much as tough as they could make it, you know. The workmanship, and took pride in our work back then. And boy, that's primitive. So I've been trying to get it all apart without cutting anything up. I mean, I don't know why. I don't think I'm gonna put this back together, but just as if this was all service related stuff going on. Looks like a bug or something in there. Dead bug for sure. Nothing down in that one. That one, some kind of roach or a bee or something that got down in there and lost his life. I'll tell you what, these limits here are definitely something like you would not see today. Do not alter safety stop. I like that. Here's some part numbers and some information. That is the fan off and on. Fan limit is what we would call that. And this one is the safety. This is the burner limit. Made in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Don't see parts like that anymore. This is spot welded, it looks like. No screws or nothing in it. Curious as to what that is. Both of those are just, I guess it is holding. So, let's take it apart some more. All right, I've taken all the screws out of the plate here. Another thing I'm going to be interested to see is what protects this wire that goes from the front to the back. Now this has to go right by the heat exchanger back there to the blower. And I'm just going to be interested to see what sort of channel that is in, or what is protecting that from heat. From the heat exchanger there. So I took all those little draft baffles, or whatever we're going to call those, out. And now I've got this loose. Might kind of start to get a little messy here. So there's a channel that wire goes down. Let's see if we can get this. All of these are 3/8. And I'm about ready to cheat and get the cordless drill over here. I have tried to take this primitive old furnace apart as much as I can, just with hand tools like they had back in this day. I mean, they didn't have a cordless drill. I remember the first Makita cordless drill I saw was, I don't know, 89 or 90. Somewhere right in then. I remember it being a 6-volt and having a great big long huge battery. And about all we could do is put zip screws in with it and grills and take apart a few things. It wasn't, certainly wasn't developed like it is these days, where you actually got powerful cordless tools and hammer drills and all that. But anyway, they didn't have much of any of that back in this day. So I'm using these wrist breakers to take this apart, but I think I might have cheated one time and stuck my drill in where it would have taken a really long extension to get that main hood off of here. But so let's get the rest of these out and see what this does when we take this plate off. Well, I tell you what, that was rough, and I tell you, that's still kind of cheating because they didn't have those ratchet wrenches back then. Now, they did have ratchets, but all right, let's got this whole plate loose now. Hopefully there's no, well, I'd be wearing a mask. That old insulation looks like fiberglass. I hope it's not asbestos or something. Do a little something, I'll get right back. Okay. If I missed anything, or if it's just that wire holding it. There we go. I think this, I'm gonna have to go outside for a little bit. I'm trying to keep all these parts here where we could look at them all in one spot when we're done. So here's the channel that wire goes, and then it's got this plate bolted on there that kind of shields the heat from this outer cabinet, and then this wire is going through this. Boy, the workmanship of this cabinet back then was really good. These are spot welded electrical boxes, and that's obviously spot welded. That channel that goes down to take the wire from front to back. But anyway, it's mainly the heat exchanger that I was trying to get a look at. And there it is. And it is just amazingly tough. You know, I'm not so sure that they would want to make these last that long anymore. I'm quite sure they don't want to make them this heavy anymore. I think it's just sitting there. There may be a little bit more to unbolt, get it to move, and you can see the indentation there. This is spot welded, so that plate's not going anywhere, but the heat exchanger is independent of it, so we should be able to get it out. Oh, that is one heavy duty apparatus right there. And there's the weight of it. You know, taking that blower out of it and all those parts and all these parts really probably did not lighten it up a whole lot. That right there is the weight. All right, so there was a couple of more screws back here that I took out, and I think this thing might move now, and we may be able to, oh yeah, here we go. Well, look at that thing. That's where some of those screws were. Well, look at the workmanship back in those days. Like I say, I don't think they want them to last like this anymore. Not the most efficient design, but you want to talk about bulletproof. Still working after 55 years of service. Let's lay this thing out here and see if we can look at it closer. All right, there she is. She's out on the floor. And I tell you what, this thing is just as tough as nails could ever be. Sears Home Art Automatic 600. Life-clad, ceramic coated. Had that nice simulated wood grain look to the face of it there, and that really nice gold looking grill part sorta. So let's look at this heat exchanger, and like I said, all I did was took a couple of these wipes and just wiped off that one spot to see what it would look like. And that's all I did to this one like a week or so ago when we brought this in here. And this thing, I tell you what, it's just as tough as nails. Let's look up in here, a couple other spots. Now there's a spot I haven't touched yet. I may have touched it with my hand dry, but that's, you can see how good it looks without getting wiped off. And you know how things always look better when they're wet. Let's come out here to the end where there's actually a little bit of surface rust on this thing. Things always look better when they're wet. There, that's starting to dry. So I don't want to cheat. Thought I had some paper towels in here, something I could dry it with. But anyway, I mean, you can see how tough that was made. I mean, this heat exchanger, I would say, as far as wear and tear and durability, it's in just as good a shape as it was the day they made it. I mean, it's got some ugliness to it, but it's every bit as tough as it was when they made the furnace. So, let's look at all the hardware in one pile. And I mean, this, for the most part, right here, is all the tools it took me to take that thing apart. And there's some hardware, and here's the rest. And like I was saying, it had these wire nuts that had copper inside of them. And let's take this over here and put it all in one spot. And that right there, including the little wire inserts, the wire nuts that were actually in it from the factory, back there at the fan connections. That right there is everything. It took this thing apart. There's one sticker I might not have caught. But that's pretty impressive. 55 years of operation. I don't know, how many of you guys really interested in this. I think some of the old timers like me would probably find this more interesting than some of the others. But yeah, that's dry. And you can see just how tough they made things back then. All right, so I don't know if I'll take this any further or not. I may take this burner and clean it really well, those little, each of those burners, and clean them really well, and I may